Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look back at the 2022 Breeders' Cup Sprint at Keeneland. Jackie's Warrior was looking to make amends. He was the beaten favorite in the 2021 Breeders' Cup Sprint at Del Mar, and he was beaten in his final prep for the Breeders' Cup. That, of course, being the 7/8 of a mile forego at Saratoga. Let's watch Jackie's Warrior. He went off at 3 to 5. He is breaking from post position number 9. Jackie's Warrior didn't make the lead in here. Super Ocho showed big Southern California speed, but Jackie's Warrior is sitting right in second.
Yeah, outrun to the lead in this race by the big long shot, Super Ocho. I guess maybe that was the first warning sign. I don't really know what to say, Dan. I don't want to be too hard on this horse. He's been a good sprinter around here for a very long time, and I was a big fan of his. This is a super, super, super disappointing performance from this horse.
Keep an eye on Arad Ortiz and Elite Power in the pink cap, the familiar Judmon Silk, sitting in mid-pack aboard the number 6, Elite Power. Jackie's Warrior is now going to confront Super Ocho, and he's supposed to eventually go on by, and he does. But Elite Power, who really just seemed like one of the now horses of this division, lightly raced, a lot of upside angles to the outside, really slick move there from Arad, and he's going to run them down. CZ Rocket, the venerable veteran on the rail, is going to get second.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss the ride that Arad Ortiz gave this horse for the win here. Elite Power, he was well back off the pace early, and Arad just did not rush him at all. He let him find his stride, and as you saw there when they came off the turn, Dan, this horse lost absolutely no ground getting a clean run. He did not take him wide. He let him save a little bit of that ground around the turn. Then he angled him out into the clear. Elite Power did the rest to his credit. He came with a very strong finish in this race.
So for all of Jackie's Warrior's accolades, and he's done some remarkable things in his career, he will go out as the beaten favorite for the second consecutive year in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He will be heading to stud. Kamari was the mare taking on the boys in here. She could have run in the filly and mare sprint going 7/8. They like her at this 6 furlong distance, and she just didn't show any speed in this race.
Yeah, never involved in the race at any point. There was never any point in the race where it looked like Kamari was going to be a factor in here. She was outrun from the start. She was always towards the back. Another horse who sort of stayed over towards the inside for a long way and just didn't really do a lot, Dan. I mean, they obviously ran her in the wrong race. I'm not suggesting that she was going to win the filly mare sprint if they ran her there, but she would have had a much better chance.
Would you argue that American Theorem ran in the wrong race either? There was talk about him perhaps stretching out around 2 turns in the dirt mile, which on paper was a tougher race, just all things considered. But maybe 6 furlongs was a little sharp because he was kind of outrun early and just didn't kick the way he usually does in the stretch.
Yeah, he just didn't run in a very strong race here. And I personally don't feel like they ran him in the wrong race. I think this was the right race to run him in. And he just wasn't good enough at the end of the day. I thought all in all, the trip that Joe Bravo gave him was a pretty good one. And this horse just didn't really fire that hard. He brought great form into the race. But he's, like several others in here, Dan, this was not a very strong Breeders' Cup Sprint. There were a bunch of horses who ran very poorly in here.
CZ Rocket was not one of the horses that ran poorly. He loves Keeneland. I believe he placed in the Breeders' Cup Sprint a couple of years ago. He got a pretty good trip here under Flavien Prat. He showed speed. He was up close to the pace. He was in with a chance. He just wasn't as good as Elite Power. This is a horse that seems to just find his form for 2-3 races at a time at the ripe old age of 8. He was second in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship down inside, and he ran well again.
He ran fine in here. Pratt gave this horse a perfect trip. He was within range of a pretty solid pace. The rail you saw there when we watched the replay as they came into the stretch, the rail just completely opened up for this horse. You could have, driven 5 horses through there. He came through. He had every chance to win. He was just forging on at the end, and he wasn't quite good enough. But listen, I guess give him credit for finishing second in the sprint again.
Corey Lannery likes to save ground. That's exactly what he did with 4th place finisher Maniwa, who won his prior start at Keeneland. He was down in a little bit tight and behind horses at the very end. This horse was running. I wonder if he gets to the outside, if he nabs Jackie's Warrior for 3rd.
Yeah, might have been able to get a piece of it. Overall, though, I don't think you can really complain about the trip that he got, Dan. He's got to save every inch. He really didn't have that much traffic until the very, very late stages. The trip really worked out for him. He did his best with it at a huge price to be fourth. Obesos, I thought, sort of similarly, always outrun, always stayed towards the inside to save some ground, rallied through a little bit of traffic. He never looked like he was a real threat in there, but he did well to get fifth, I suppose.
And the defending champion Aloha West, this was a big ask for trainer Wayne Catalano, returning this horse off of a lengthy layoff in a race where you knew there was just going to be a fast pace, and he just wasn't ready for this.
Yeah, he had so much working against him. I'm not going to, hold his disappointing performance against him. Some of the others, it's a little bit, harder to forgive. Aloha West gets a pass.
Let's talk a little bit more about the winner of this race, Elite Power, a son of Super Stallion Curlin, a $900,000 Keeneland September yearling purchase, a horse that has now won 5 consecutive races. He won the Vosburg, maybe not the strongest edition of the Vosburg, but it was a race that put him on the radar in the Breeders' Cup Sprint here in the 100 Beyer speed figure. He's not going to go down in history right now as we speak as one of the top sprinters of all time, but he still is progressive, and if they do keep him in training in 2023, this division is ripe for a horse like Elite Power to sort of grab it by the horns.
Yeah, I'm happy to look at him that way myself, Dan. This horse just feels like you could tell he was getting better through the summer with every time Bill Mott sent him out there, he would just run an improved race. He was winning races over, I guess you could say, suspect competition, but he was winning convincingly. You could tell that this horse had a good amount of talent. Now, a 100 Beyer speed figure, when you run that kind of figure to win the Breeders' Cup Sprint, it sort of makes you feel like, well, anybody could have won. That's not a particularly fast race, but I'll give this horse the credit that he deserves as well. He got a good trip in here, but he showed up again. He ran again. He won easily at the end, and I doubt we've seen his best race yet.
He's also versatile. He has won at 7. He has won at a mile. That gives Bill options. He, of course, did this old school. Maiden to the first level allowance, to the second level allowance, to the grade 2, to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He still has upside. Let's look at the prices for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Elite Power was the third choice in this race. He paid $13.10 to win. I assume CZ Rocket will be back for more as a 9-year-old in 2023. Jackie's Warrior completes a good career, finishing third in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Elite Power, $13.10. Bill Mott wins the Breeders' Cup Sprint at Keeneland.